Hello, Igor. Welcome to the first podcast of Ethereal Advisors. Can you introduce yourself briefly for the audience?
Yeah, so my name's Igor Tutelman. I'm a CPA. I was born in Ukraine and my family emigrated to the US about 20 some years ago now. I lead Iota Finance, and we're a firm that cares and takes the stress out of financial management and tax planning for our clients, which are primarily small businesses and venture-backed startups.
So let's say if you want to prepare a step-by-step plan, can you give me a step-by-step method so that I don't fall where people would generally fall?
Yeah, I'd say step one is choose your niche.
Okay,
Step
niche.
two, yep. Step two is determine what services you want to provide and create packages for your niche, for your prospective client. Step three is start generating somewhere from like 1 to 10 high quality deals per month, right? It might be a little bit lower if you don't have any people you're working with or you don't have any partners, but focusing on just high quality deals instead of spraying and praying and then hoping that somebody comes through the door. After that, for step four, I'd say that it's doing capacity planning and figuring out where you're spending your time so that you can offload that non-value add time. um, Step five is going to be finding and building that team around what you're doing so that they can support you, so that they can take things off your plate, and continue to serve your clients properly. And I think step five is that, but it's also developing processes. It's also understanding that if you don't know what your hire is going to be doing, if you can't list off, 5 things that you need them to do, they're probably going to fail and you're going to fire them or they're going to leave very quickly. So I think those go hand in hand, processes and people. And then six, I think, is figuring out what your goal is. Do you want a small practice that you can just, pays the bills, lets you go on vacation a couple times a year, you work, 30 hours, 40 hours, whatever? Or do you want to build a massive firm? Because the way that you go about getting to that goal is going to be very different depending on where you want to go. But I think that's kind of the 6 steps that I would use when it comes to developing a practice from day zero if I have to restart.
True. Even in terms of content, I feel going towards a specific niche works a lot, right? So when I think from a CPA's perspective, let's say a CPA is targeting only hoteliers or let's say medical industry, right? And if it targets the LinkedIn. So talking specifically about finance and accounting only to the medical industry will help you get specific lines of that because that will go to the doctors, that will go to the people who are working in the medical industry, and if they face any problems, then you are the one. So it's like micro influencer, not even micro influencer, I would say. It goes even beyond niche down more because at a influencer level, that is an accounting firm, you go down to the niche also. But that helps a lot because the chances of the conversion is really high, right? Am I right in saying that some niches helps you earn more and some niches helps you earn less? And which are the highest paying niche if an accountant wants to start?
I think you can make that argument, but I think that it ultimately comes down to sales and marketing, right?
Okay.
If you can provide value, it doesn't matter if your customer is a construction company or if they're a marketing agency. If you can demonstrate your value and provide high quality services, you will make money either way. It's about finding the right clients. And that's why I said, step two is, or step three is 1 to 10 high quality deals, right? Because it's less about quantity and more about quality. If you get bad clients, it doesn't matter how many clients you get. You're going to be constantly stressed out, overworked, and not happy. And, I've had to fire clients along the way, and it's never fun, but it's always about, 2 steps backwards, 3 steps forward.
Second point, that is determining the services and the packages, right? So what trends do you see? Is it better to start with first just accounting and then move into tax, or should we start with accounts, tax, and then later add audit? What should be the structure? How to think about this services?
I think the biggest trend now is selling by packages, right? So kind of like
Okay.
a bronze, silver, and gold tier of the basics slash essentials, kind of essentials plus some, bells and whistles, and then the all in, I'm your advisor, I'm your tax person, we are your firm that you need to do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. And also, um, do what you want, but billing by hour is going out the window. Not many firms are doing it anymore. The ones that are not as sustainable or scalable, at least in the smaller part of the industry. Big firms can still work by hour, and that's fine. But even then, it's more about figuring out the value that you're driving and pricing based on the value that you're driving. And you're going to mess up and you're going to find that you underpriced this client or you overpriced that potential client and they didn't sign on. But you have to learn from each experience.
So value-based pricing is the new trend that you have seen, because generally even here I see everyone charging per hour basis.
Yeah, value-based price. I mean, Ron Baker wrote the book on implementing value pricing in like the 90s. And I mean, honestly, not a lot of firms have still read it to this day, but all the online coaching programs will tell you price by value. Anybody that's trying to help you start a firm is going to tell you to focus on package services. If they're telling you to price by hour, then you're going to continue to be the bottleneck, right? Because there's two issues with hourly pricing, three issues. One is there's only so many hours in a day. Two is you are hurt by becoming better at your job. And by that, I mean, it might take you an
Yeah.
hour to do a function and you bill for an hour. But as you become more efficient, it might take you 20 minutes. And so now you can make less even though you're better at what you do. And then the third issue that I have with hourly pricing is it is a natural opposition to what your client wants. As a firm, you want to bill as many hours as possible. As a client, you want to see as little hours billed as possible. You're automatically at opposing goals with your clients, and that makes it difficult to maintain a relationship. And then they get scared of reaching out to you because they know that the clock starts running and they're going to get a bill after that phone call.
High quality lead, like what is the strategy? How to do it? Can you give me in a two way, like one is offline and one is online? How do I do it? How do I approach this?
Yeah, so I think the first part is finding out where they are.
Okay.
Right. Where are your, doctors that own practices spending their time? Odds are they're not on TikTok, right? Are they going to conferences? Are they local community members? Are they part of networking groups? Where do they spend their time? Because that's where you have to find them. Um, and then, and I think that's the same whether you're virtual or non-virtual, right? You have to figure out where your client, your target, your ideal client spends their time, and you have to kind of get in their head and live a life in the day of a doctor that owns a practice, right? To figure out what they're looking for, where they're spending their time, how they're doing things, what is important to them as they make decisions, what are the values that they live by, right? And then I think it still stays the same whether you're virtual or not. It's then having a defined sales process. For us, it kind of depends on whether it's a warm lead or a qualified lead from the get-go or just a cold inbound lead. But if it's a cold inbound lead, we'll usually do some sort of qualification process, whether that's a form or a quick call to see if we align on one, two, and three, right? Do we align on values? Do we have the technical expertise that you need? And do we align on expectations that, we're a virtual firm and odds are I'm never going to meet you. And are you okay with that? Awesome. If you're not, there's plenty of other firms that can help you. So qualifying and then going into a discovery call where you try to figure out what are their key pain points. What are they doing? What isn't working about it? And how is it affecting their life? And how do you provide value there? Is it by offloading something that takes up a lot of time for them? Is it by stepping in and doing something right that another firm messed up for them and scared them? But it's identifying where you fall into the stack and getting them to also understand, because odds are when you have a call with somebody, with a client, with a prospective client, they don't actually know what they need. I think it's getting in their head, finding where they're at, and then having a very defined process so that the ones that make it to the end, you know that they are going to be a good fit and they align with the
Okay.
goal of the practice.
If we talk about team building, right, or setting up the processes, when should one hire another team member? At what point should he think from point of view of revenue or the number of clients or the efforts he's putting it?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the goal, right?
Okay.
Um, if you know that you want to build a practice where you make, $250,000 a year and you work 30 hours a week, you can work backwards with those numbers and figure out how many clients you need to have, what kind of relationships and services you need to offer them, whether you're going to be bound by busy season or not. And you can start working your way backwards to seeing, okay, for me to do this, I need to be generating this much money. Our firm needs to be doing that much in sales, right? And you can start understanding, okay, I can't do this if I am, you know, answering emails all day long, right? And so that's where I think time tracking comes into place. I said that we don't bill by hour, we don't, but we do track everyone's time, regardless of what they do, because it's not about punishing or being big brother or anything. It's about knowing where our resources are being spent and being able to adjust them. So I know how much of my time is client time and how much of my time is admin time. And I know when that admin time starts growing more and more and more, I need to pull some of that off my plate and I need somebody there. I know that when my client time starts growing more and more and more, I need to pull some of that off my plate. And I need to build out processes, regardless of if it's client or admin time, of what I do so that I know who I'm looking for so that I can be more likely at hiring a person. And
Talking about the last point of the goal, right? Whether a person wants to stay just a small or he wants to build a big, right? A personal question you may not choose to answer. What is your goal? Like how big you want to be?
yeah, right now our goal is in 10 years, we have 1,000 clients
Okay.
at an average annual billings of ten to $15,000 per year.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Nice. I hope you do it.
We will.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'll be with you in the journey. So, what kind of metrics should a CPA track, right, initially to see that he's growing? Is there a metric apart from, let's say, MRR, ARR, or number of clients? Is there any other metric that he should track, or is this enough?
Growth in number of clients, average billings,
Okay.
and their personal time spent. I think those are kind of the three that I would focus on at day zero, day 100, right? Because a lot of the other stuff will be developed as you develop more data, as you build more systems. Now our challenge is I know what our goal is, and it's hard to quantify whether our clients are happy, right? And so we're working on NPS surveys, which isn't something that you think about with accounting firms, right?
Yeah.
You right,
Never.
but
Yeah.
how else do you necessarily quantify whether your clients are happy? Sure, referrals could be a part of it, but not all clients know how to make referrals, even if you give them the structure and try to teach them how to. And so it's, yeah, we have to go into areas that aren't traditional for accounting firms. We need to be asking, we need to figure out what our net promoter score is. We need to understand whether our clients are truly happy from hearing it from them and giving them the opportunity to speak without fear of, oh, they're going to fire us if we say something bad, So I think once you grow, your metrics expand and MRR, ARR become more important metrics. NPS becomes a more important metric. And kind of your progress compared to where your goal is, right? We're still a ways away from our goal, but I know where we're at relative to it. I know percentage wise how far away we are from that goal. And that's kind of what I use as more or less my North Star. Is
Okay.
this bringing us closer to the goal or is this pulling us away?
Away. Yeah. Coming to the point of future outlook, like understanding where the accounting industry is heading. What do you think? Where is accounting industry growing? Young people are not coming in. AI is seeing like adaptation now, and but still so many people are not using it. What do you think? Where this industry will go in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, short term offshoring, long term AI. Um,
Okay.
Offshoring isn't a new concept. It's been
Yeah. Yeah.
around for
Yeah.
quite a while, and even the biggest firms in the world have offshore teams that are dedicated to this stuff. The issue with offshoring is cultural differences and quality management. You need to have a lot of systems and structure and really intentional to make sure that it is not just another sunk cost in a learning experience, right? And so that's why most people try offshoring and then pull away from it because they run into issues and they don't know how to solve them. And so they think they throw up their hands and they go a couple steps back and try to focus on domestic. There's plenty of opportunities in that area, but ultimately, I think it's going to come down to how do we leverage new technologies like AI to augment our roles. I think tax preparation is not going to be a service that accounting firms are performing manually in the next 10, 15 years. There's already different startups that are working on automating the tax preparation process. I'm going to be honest, we are working on automating the tax preparation process with some of our workflows and having ways for, plugging in numbers is not value add. It doesn't add value to our clients or to our firm. How do we move that process away from copying, pasting to having standardized systems processes, templates that can map that information over, right? And tax is complicated, so it's going to take a while. And also there's a huge trust barrier there that's also going to add additional time onto it. But like that's something that we think about. We do internal lunch and learns every month with the team, focusing on, sometimes it's tax and accounting related, sometimes it's not, but it's a time for us to share things that we're interested in or that we want the team to be focused on. And January's for us was on how we can use ChatGPT to be more effective in our roles. The areas we can use it in, the areas that we can't use it in, and limitations and risks along the way, right?
Okay.
But there's no running away from it. It's not going anywhere. And you
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
embrace it or you let it steamroll you because it's going to do one or the other. It's either going to help you grow or it's going to end your firm.
It serves more as a guide and a resource when you need to understand things or need to find out something rather than going to a textbooks opening, because if you see the law books that are quite lengthy and it's easy to help it out, right? Even on
Yeah.
the marketing and sales side, right? So I use AI extensively when it comes to the writing or anything, whether I do related to video content or textual content. What I personally, what how I see it is, I see that if a person has a taste on something, he has a judgment, he has an understanding of something, right? So AI can help them figure it out, give them the option. For example, let's say if I'm working on a thumbnail and I need five different options, right? So earlier, I know what is going to work, but I'm not going to sit and figure out the five options. So earlier, I used to hire a person who will do a research, who also has some understanding of the content. He'll give me five options, and then I'll select one. So right now, it's totally right. I don't need a person. I can just tell the AI, and it'll give me five options. I'll have to select based on my taste and judgment what is going to work, and whether that will resonate with my audience or not, and just select it. And I think that is the best way to do it, right?
And the better your instructions, the better outputs you'll
Yeah,
receive.
yeah, yeah. So prompting gets into a totally different section, like learning how to do prompting and all. Okay, so we are now almost on the end of the podcast. Last segment that is just a rapid fire, and you can answer in a one word. If you want to stretch it, you can stretch it. What's one book every CPA should read?
The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
And what does this book suggest? What does it shows? Oh, you have
Um,
it.
I do have it somewhere. I have the E-Myth. Oh, here it is. So I have the E-Myth Accountant, but I like the E-Myth Revisited a little bit
Oh,
better.
okay.
It's all about shifting your mindset from technician to CEO, from moving from a CPA to a CEO, like I like to say. And it focuses and kind of talks through what happens if you don't do that.
So, what's the one advice you would like to give to CPAs to grow their revenue and build a personal brand?
Niche down and raise your prices.
So, I feel it's the end of the podcast. Thank you so much. I learned a lot, like so many pointers to think on this. Thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.